to me and asked me to give him a hand, and of course I said I would do that. And although I don't feel like I've done as much as Scotty's been out there really making this an awareness campaign and raising a lot of important funds for domestic violence in our area, of course. So just before I start, we have got a few special guests that we have to welcome here today. Scotty's done quite well with getting our dignitaries along. So the first one we've got today is Lisa Newman, of course. Thank you, Lisa, so much for coming along. Lisa is obviously Campbell Newman, the Premier of Queensland, the Honourable Premier's wife, and someone who's been actively involved in the CEO Challenge before. And I've just been told by the director down there that she was the first winner of the CEO Challenge. So understands what the CEO Challenge is about. We've got Peter Flannery on the table as well, representing the Mayor today, Superintendent Mike Brady from the Queensland Police Service, Anne Rebgetz, the Principal of St Columban's, Wendy Reid, of course, who's the Director of the CEO Challenge, Margarita Ooms, is going to be telling us a story of survival later on, so thank you very much, Margaret, for coming along. Adam Lachmund, who's the President of Commerce Caboolture, and other invited distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Without much further ado, we do have obviously a very special guest, or host today, who's putting this on, and I'll be introducing him in a minute. I feel a bit funny actually standing up here, being at a function where I'm the MC that Scott Lachmund's actually at. And normally, for anyone that would know that you go around with Scott Lachmund, normally he is the MC himself. But without any further ado, we do have Scott Lachmund here. I'll call you to the stage, Scotty. Scott has been very influential in running his awareness and fundraising campaigns about the CEO Challenge. And when he asked me to help, I would be no so proud a man to do that, because for our region it's a very important issue out there, domestic violence, and as much awareness and fundraising and those sort of things that we bring the community together will really benefit all as a community. So thank you very much, Scott, and Robert Scott at the lectern.
Okay, take a breath. I usually get a bit anxious and nervous with things like this. Normally being the MC, I'm more confident, but hosting the event today, I probably want to start with just a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart. Domestic violence has become an issue close to my heart that I've joined this campaign to spread awareness throughout our community, which I think is vitally important at this stage in our lives. I won't waffle on too much. I do have a few messages I would like to share. But firstly, domestic violence. Why Scotty Lachmund and why am I here doing this today? My partner Jackie Tucker manages a women's refuge in Brisbane. Jackie sees how domestic violence affects ladies on a day-to-day basis. Ladies that have been abused or in those situations, they get extracted from the violence. They get dropped off at Jackie's Refuge, Chisholm Incorporated, which is located on the north side of Brisbane. They get dropped off at her refuge, and then she tries to facilitate a 12-week program of getting these ladies more confident, back on their feet, both socially, economically, so that they don't return to the predator who caused the violence in the beginning. But why I'm doing it mainly is in support of Jackie's work, and for the greater work of what the Australia CEO Challenge brings to the table, trying to make workplace partners between domestic violence and businesses in our community. The challenge, it is a race that I'm involved in. It's a race between, it launched in May this year, goes through to November, the anniversary of White Ribbon Day on the 25th of November. And on that occasion we'll then compare with my fellow racers who include Mackay Regional Council, Toowoomba Chamber of Commerce, the Southern Downs Regional Council, RBS Morgans, the research company, other IT international companies. There's a collection of about 10 CEOs and business leaders that have joined the CEO Challenge race for 2013. And me, I'm just Scotty from Caboolture. I'm a licensed real estate agent, a company director of our family business who's been operating in Caboolture for 19 years now. And through our family business, I thought I could take up this challenge and spread awareness like I am today, inviting mostly friends, but the business community to see what this domestic violence is all about, and see how we can band together as a business community and maybe filter into our workplaces, spread the message of how domestic violence is happening to maybe our employees, and how we can assist and refer information to guide them along in their journey. Domestic violence is mostly hidden behind closed doors of people's homes and does not often show up on the radar until it results in violent homicide. Yet workplaces, I feel, are the key to bringing this silent epidemic into the light so it can be prevented. Whether you like it or not, it is highly likely that a proportion of your staff and colleagues are affected by domestic violence as victims or family and friends of victims. Domestic violence affects many employees. Our research shows that 1 in 3 women in Australia experience violence and abuse in their relationship at some time in their life. At least 2.5 million women are affected right now. Of these, 2/3 are employed. Domestic violence has become a health and safety, security and liability concern for employees also. 1/4 of victims reported that domestic violence continued at the workplace through abusive calls and emails, or their partner turning up, placing both them and their other staff at risk or injury of harm. Employees have obligations under workplace health and safety to reduce this risk of violence in the workplace. People affected by domestic violence are more likely to be distracted from basic safety procedures at work, leading to increased risk of workplace accidents and injuries. The domestic violence becomes a healthcare concern of our community as well. People who have experienced domestic violence, whether in childhood or adult life, have increased short and long-term physical, mental, sexual and reproductive health problems, leading to high social and economical costs. Long-term victims and their children experience higher rates of depression, anxiety, stress-related symptoms, substance abuse and ultimately suicidal attempts. Taking action in response to domestic violence works. A workplace domestic violence program that involves distributing information and work resources, training staff to recognise, respond and refer, and having policies and procedures to support victims can result in those affected being able to change their circumstances while remaining employed. The 3 things: become informed, become aware and become prepared. To recognise domestic violence at work and respond appropriately, you don't have to be a counsellor, you don't have to be an expert, but it does pay for you to know what to say and where to refer your staff or people when you can. You can make a difference in your workplace and in the lives of your employees who are facing abuse by taking up a workplace domestic violence prevention program offered by Australia's CEO Challenge. We do have Director of CEO Challenge, Wendy Reid, here today, and I would like to welcome you that when we finish our formalities today and when we're networking and mingling, by all means come and talk to Wendy or myself, and we can explain those workplace programs a bit further to try to engage you into your workplaces, how you can help people that are affected.
And thank you so much, Scott. The students will be serving lunch very shortly. Of course, part of the school, and the reason why we chose this location is that we do have the facility of the students at the school here having a hospitality trade training centre, and obviously doing part of their curriculum. And I understand today that some of them are actually doing their curriculum process throughout this, so they don't get too much of a hard time. But they'll start serving the dinners in a minute. But just while we do that, I'd like to invite up to the stage Anne Rebgetz, if I can. Anne's the principal here at St Columba's, and she would like to give a bit of a speech today just in regards of their involvement in St Columba's in this process and the school and of course the event today. So welcome Anne to the stage.
Thank you, Darren. Good afternoon and a big welcome to Ms Lisa Newman, the Honourable Darren Grimwade, Scott, Lachmund, Superintendent Mike Brady, Wendy Reid, all the CEOs who are here, Mr Jim Mitchley, Principal of St Peter's College, Mr Lawrence Ray, Chair of our College Board, our board members, our college staff and students. We're very pleased to have you in our new centre, and in terms of supporting us, we thank you, Scott, for coming to us and allowing us to be the venue that you chose to host this special event. It is such an important event and it's very relevant to what we do at the college, but also as a workplace ourselves at the college. In terms of our new Mary MacKillop Performance Centre, and that's the name of our centre, I feel the presence of our first Australian saint, Mary MacKillop, here today, because one of her special sayings was, "Never see a need without doing something about it." So congratulations, Scott, in taking up this initiative and trying to lead the way in developing a workplace culture against domestic violence. Just as Mary MacKillop's sisters actually set up the first Catholic primary school in Caboolture in the 1950s to create a new opportunity, so too are you, Scott, trying to lead in setting up a new culture and developing a workplace culture against domestic violence. We have a wonderful community in our own college, and there's many people here today to reflect that. We would not be in this beautiful centre if that wasn't true. We built this centre ourselves, and obviously we had to borrow money to do it, but the big aspect of the centre that's so important is bringing us together as community and being able to link to the community. I guess it also sends another strong message to our students because it's provided a lot of opportunities, but the underlying part of that I think it sends is that we really care. We really care about our students. And that sense of message and following people in what they do is about our parents. Parents and adults, they do things, and guess what happens? Children follow. So if we send a message of hope, faith, respect and community, then that is how our children will act. If, however, a message is one of abuse, anger, jealousy, control, blame, threat, coercion, force in how you relate to each other, then guess what? Again, our children follow. Caboolture has, as Scott has talked about some of the statistics Australia-wide, Caboolture itself has the highest rate of domestic violence. Its unemployment rates are double the national average. Our college has one of the highest rates of student protection reports in Brisbane Catholic education. And I know Jim, sitting over there, our principal of St Peter's, again would verify that in terms of the younger students. We're not hiding this. This is the reality of our context. But what is our response to that? Our response is that we create a culture of respect and success at the school to enable our students to be liberated. Our Edmund Rice charism talks about presence, compassion and liberation. So we try to emulate that in what we're doing in our culture. We have the equivalent of 2.5 counsellors, fully qualified counsellors, just for our students. This is a school-based decision to employ more people in counselling. We have extra staff in other areas to help out our students. But essentially we have a culture where we're developing a strong community to build social capital. And in that we're building faith. Because when your community has those problems, the social capital also is not strong, because you've got that pattern of emulation where continued behaviours will still keep happening. I've spent many years in Queensland schools and Northern Territory schools. I've lived in Indigenous communities, I've been a principal in an Indigenous community. My involvement has seen the worst possible situations. The worst possible situations in Queensland schools and the worst possible situations in the Northern Territory context. But I've seen great progress. I've seen progress where Aboriginal women in the Northern Territory who have been extremely poorly treated, who've been abused, now demand a DVO and say, I am not putting up with this anymore. I've seen progress today with what Scott is doing in taking a stand, and by your presence, you're also doing the same. And although domestic violence is not always women as victims, men are too, but the statistics, as Scott has quoted, really tell the story that it's a much greater chance that is a woman in this situation. I'm inspired by the many women, older and younger, that I know, that are personal friends, like my Aboriginal friend Rosaria, like my non-Aboriginal friend Valmain, who have both suffered, both been humiliated, who often, at a great cost, have said, no, I'm not going to be treated like this anymore. He has the problem, not myself, and I'm getting out of this. So thank you, Scott, and thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for being here today. In terms of our mission, yesterday we had our executive director come to the school, Pam Betts, and we were discussing the difference between social justice and advocacy. So I think our challenge now is to be the advocates for change. We understand social justice, we can talk about social justice, but the real challenge is to be the advocate to make things happen and to make things change. Thank you.